This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Ben Sears at Ben Sears on Letterboxd.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com and more podcasts presented by Obsessive Viewer at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. You can also like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. And on Patreon, at the $1 level, you'll have access to almost 150 at this point, exclusive B-roll episodes of us just kind of talking as a warm-up recording for the main event recording. In this Patreon episode, we talked about movies that are coming up for the rest of the year that we're interested in, and some Criterion releases that we're looking forward to, and how much Ben is super excited for... Space Jam, New Legacy.
Yep.
At the $2 per month level, you'll get that plus TV review and reaction episodes where I recently reviewed every episode of Loki and every episode of Lisi's Story and every episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and also the complete series of Superstore and the first season of Rutherford Falls. So all of that is at $2 per month plus the B-roll episodes. And at the $5 a month level, you'll get all of that plus movie commentary tracks that I record somewhat infrequently now. And finally, at the $10 a month level, you get all of that plus early access to podcast episodes and previously unreleased content. Just so you guys know, we're releasing this episode early next week, but our Patreon supporters at $10 will probably have access to it Saturday at the latest. So a little incentive to do that. Again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And I'm your host, the aforementioned Matt Hurt. And with me today is the other aforementioned co-host on the podcast, recurring co-host and contributing OV reviewer, Ben Sears. How's it going?
Good.
Good. You just recently posted a review of the Nicolas Cage movie Pig.
Yes, I did.
On the website, on the newly redesigned website.
Yeah.
How
smooth and sleek and
yes, much less cluttered.
Designed for the future.
Yes, it now looks much less like a shitty GeoCities kind of thing. So maybe Rotten Tomatoes will pay attention to me now. But but also, like I had this stupid thought that I wanted to post a meme of this, but I didn't want to be too self-deprecating about the website, but because I just have a free WordPress website with a free theme on there, but now I have upgraded it. I have a premium theme, and it looks a little bit sleeker. But like I want to post like a tweet that says something to the effect of like, "This is what my website is saying." Is saying now that I've upgraded the look a little bit, and it would just be a picture, a still from the the baby sketch of I Think You Should Leave season 2, and it would just be Tim Robinson saying like, "I used to be a piece of shit," which is delightful. Yeah. Anyway, I'm
Good.
Also planning on doing Patreon reviews of the first 2 seasons of I Think You Should Leave, by the way.
Great.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. What about, how did you feel about Pig? Were you going to bring that up for Potpourri, or did you want to promote your work on the internet?
Yeah, you can read it on the website. But yes, I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it.
Nice.
I think it's one of the best movies of the year so far.
Very cool.
And I got the email when it was like announced for the release date or whatever from Neon, who distributed it, and I just kind of wrote it off because I don't see many Nicolas Cage movies these days, and the premise just did not really sound interesting at all to me.
What is the premise? Because I've only heard the title and Nicolas Cage. The
premise is that Nicolas Cage is a loner who lives in the woods in Oregon, and he hunts for truffles with his pig, who these pigs, can have a very instinctive way to find these rare and expensive truffles. So he goes out through the woods looking for truffles with it, and he has this really close bond with it. And one night the pig gets kidnapped and taken from him. So he goes out and searches for it. And just the way that it goes from that very basic premise that sounds like, every other Liam Neeson movie of the past Wick, 10 years.
Nobody.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The way that it deviates from that is just incredible. And the ideas that it has at play in this movie are just really profound and really well done. I was very impressed with it. And Nicolas Cage does a really good performance. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't be surprised because he's a good actor.
Yeah.
He just...
when he wants to be.
Right. He just doesn't choose projects very selectively. But he does a very good, very subtle, very quiet performance. And it's really good. So check it out. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be in theaters. Sweet. And I looked it up. It's not in a whole lot of theaters. It's not widely available just yet. Like it's here in Indy, but not, everywhere. Okay. So check it out.
Interesting. And that's called Pig. And check out Ben's review. I'll put a link in the show notes, of course. Very cool. There was something I was going to ask you about. Just stupid. When you said the premise and everything, when I said the different titles, I wanted to also throw in there Detective Crashmore, from I think season 2, the Santa Claus action movie.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah. There was also a meme someone posted that was like Loki season 1 or Loki season finale, and it was just a screen grab of that sketch from I Think You Should Leave, and it's just Santa Claus saying like it's kind of a cosmic gumbo.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No,
it does kind of work.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about Loki season 1 on Disney Plus, and probably talk a little bit about some other stuff as well. Before we get into the review and everything, which of course we'll do a non-spoiler and spoiler review. Before we get into that, there's some stuff that has come up that I want to bring up. Really just one thing today that I talked to you about via text, Ben, but in our previous Patreon recording on Tuesday, you mentioned that you saw the documentary Roadrunner.
Yes.
A film about Anthony Bourdain by Morgan Neville. And so today, Twitter kind of went crazy because Morgan Neville had an interview, like GQ published an interview with him where he says, and I quote, in the beginning, in the beginning, I went and gathered everything he ever said about his life. I went through every book and podcast and voiceover session and put together a binder of like 500 pages of him talking about his life. There was a moment when I was even like, gee, I could make the whole film in his voice, though I stopped myself instantly. But then I came across a few things he wrote, but that he never said. And so I had this idea to create an AI model of his voice, which we did. And the interviewer says, how does that work? And he said, we fed more than 10 hours of Tony's voice into an AI model. The bigger the quantity, the better the result. We worked with 4 companies before settling on the best. We also had to figure out the best tone of Tony's voice, his speaking voice versus his quote-unquote narrator voice, which itself changed dramatically over the years. The narrator voice got very performative and sing-songy in the No Reservation years. I checked, with his widow and his literary executor, just to make sure people were cool with that, and they were like, Tony would have been cool with that. I wasn't putting words into his mouth. I was just trying to make them come alive. And yeah, so Twitter kind of went crazy with that because that seems like it is a very tricky gray area, and I'm already uncomfortable with the idea of deep fakes. Video or otherwise, but this seems like it seems like it is a very dangerous precedent. How did you take this news, and what was your reaction? And could you detect anything in the documentary?
No, I had no idea. I watched it earlier this week, so I didn't know that going into it, but I couldn't tell.
Well, and he also has a quote that I forgot to read. It says, "I created an AI of his voice. If you watch the film, other than that line you mentioned, you probably don't know what the other lines are that were spoken by the AI, and you're not going to know."
Yeah.
Which seems vaguely threatening and weird.
Yeah, I mean, there are some moments that I was kind of confused about because he does narrate these kind of whimsical kind of moments, but I assumed that it was like excerpts from his audiobook or from his TV shows. So I had no idea there. And at first reaction, I was kind of uneasy about it as well. Like I was not a huge fan of learning about that.
Right.
But from the more that I read about it, he didn't just like make it up.
Right.
You know, it was things that he had written himself. He just had never said it out loud. So it's not, you know, he didn't like put words into his mouth. He didn't he didn't make assumptions.
Yeah,
and make something fictitious.
Yeah, and that's where it gets a little murky in terms of it being a gray area and everything, because I mean it's a few lines from what I understand, and I can understand in this context it being, you know, okay. But I saw like a comment saying like, oh, I can't wait until like the documentary about like King Hillary or King Obama and Queen Hillary ruling the world or whatever, like just really like intense deep fake things that obviously we're at a time in the culture where there is a lot of unverified bullshit that is going around the internet and social media that all of our grandparents and aunts and uncles and elderly relatives otherwise are sharing without any fact-checking or common sense. So this creates just this weird sensation in me that's like, it feels just very icky. And to your point about it being, obviously being like things that he wrote and everything, I mean, just have a voiceover artist. Like, I can have an actual voice. Like, did you ever see the documentary Love and Tosha about,
No.
Oh God, Anton
Nope.
Yelchin?
Nope.
Okay. Incredible documentary. Incredible. And they go through a lot of Anton Yelchin's like journals and notes that he had and everything. And I mean, it's, God damn it, that's so fucking tragic. But they go through that, and the word, like his words, the narration is actually provided by Nicolas Cage. And that's how they separate like Anton Yelchin's actual writing and everything. I'm like, I don't know, maybe do something like that.
Yeah.
It just seems really like a bad precedent to set.
Yeah.
To start.
Yeah, and I mean, he left behind one ex-wife at least, and a ex-girlfriend. So they could have read those.
Yeah.
You know, they had options.
Yeah. It just seems, I don't know. It seems, I don't want to say deceitful, but it feels like it's to
be fair, I guess to defend the film a little bit, there have been elements of documentaries in the past that have been fictitious. Like one of my favorite documentaries from last year, Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets.
Oh, right.
It was presented as this real bar with these real people who all know each other and are spending one last night together before the bar closes. And then I didn't learn until afterwards that none of these people knew each other. The bar wasn't real. It was just a bar that they had rented out in a totally different city. And they just kind of set up cameras and documented what these people did together. So from that standpoint, it's technically not a real documentary. There's some elements of fiction and nonfiction to it. So I don't know.
But that's an interesting point, because I kind of like my initial reaction was like, well, did it present itself as a work of fiction? where, I mean, it sounds like it didn't. But I don't know. I understand reenactments in documentaries are necessary.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are reenactments. They are presented that way. So I don't know. It's just the whole idea of deep fakes just really bothers me and disturbs me. So
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. Also, as someone who has hundreds of hours of my voice out on the internet, I am very very nervous about what that might entail or what that might lead to.
Don't make any enemies.
Right. Oh, I've made a few. Yes. You've seen pictures of Pizza clawing me and everything with her little love claws. So I wanted to bring that up. Anything else before we get into our review?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't think I do.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, let's go into our review of Loki. Loki is the third MCU show to hit Disney Plus in, I want to say, within the last year, because I think WandaVision came out before the end of the year, didn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, it's the third Disney Plus show to come out, and I like I said, I did reviews of each episode on Patreon, and I mean, spoiler alert, this was my favorite of the three shows so far. So it's I'm very eager to talk about it. So of course we're going to do a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review just for shits and giggles. I'm going to read the plot summary courtesy of IMDb as soon as I load it up here. So Loki obviously stars Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson. Tom Hiddleston, of course, reprising his role of Loki from the MCU movies. And, okay. Well, I apparently don't have a good connection here. Oh boy. Okay, so it ran for 6 episodes. Okay, here we go. Loki, the plot summary is, the mercurial villain Loki resumes his role as the god of mischief in a new series that takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame, which was not worth vamping for. Series was directed by Kate Herron, and writing credits include... let's see. Michael Waldron, Bisha K. Ali, Eric Martin... and Alyssa Karasik. So Ben, how did you feel about how were you feeling about the anticipation for Loki? Were you interested in it before it premiered? And where are you at in the MCU in terms of how you feel about where it's at now?
So I had no desire to watch this until I got the screeners from Disney. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much only wanted to because, I don't know, I had access to them and I had nothing else to watch. My wife is a Tom Hiddleston fan. Mm-hmm. So, believe it or not, this is the only MCU show that I have watched so far. Oh,
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And the only Disney Plus original show that I've watched so far.
Oh, that's
haven't watched The Mandalorian. Haven't watched the Mighty Ducks show. Whatever other garbage there is, I haven't watched it.
Yeah. I will say, I genuinely liked the first season of High School Musical, the series. It was very tongue-in-cheek, meta humor kind of thing that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, because you're kind of a late arrival to Disney Plus. Because if I remember correctly, you got it because of Hamilton.
Because of Soul.
Oh, because of Soul.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So you sold your soul.
Well, yeah, I pretty much did.
Right.
My bank account could tell you that. But yeah, Hamilton was a secondary byproduct of that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I like the MCU. I've seen all of their movies, I think, except for both of the Ant-Mans.
Okay.
The Ant-Men, I guess. So I've seen all of them. I just don't invest much time in them. Sure. I see them and then I move on.
Okay.
I don't worry about, what's being set up for the future. I don't go back and see how this line in this movie connects to this plot development in this movie 4 years later.
You are going to love my Patreon review of the final episode.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing, because like I don't know. I still don't. It's kind of hard not to get caught up in like what is being set up for the future, for both the Loki TV show and future Marvel movies. But I'm not gonna go and read a whole bunch of articles about fan theories and whatnot.
Oh yeah, that's where I draw the line. In terms of fan theories, like that I can't abide that. I'm barely, like, I have gone on record at saying, like, just the idea, the overall concept of fandom in general is something I am very much getting, like, very much very short temper with.
Yes.
Like, I can't take, I mean, and that's a shaky subject, because people, like, their fandoms are obviously their escape from reality. Like, if they have a hard life or anything, or hardships, mental illness, whatever, what have you, that is their world, their thing and everything, which totally fine. Like, I respect that. I understand that. I've been that several times in my life. But I think, moreover, the idea of a fandom, a singular fandom, or your, the idea of the thing that you're passionate about overtaking kind of your life and personality, to the extent that you cannot, you cannot accept any kind of criticism about it, or you take that as a personal thing. If you think that Disney fucking pays critics to stamp, like, to give negative reviews of things because they're in competition, like, that's asinine. I don't know. Like, if you have, I don't know, if you have like an obsession about something, like, obviously I'm speaking as the obsessive viewer. I understand that, but also, I mean, think critically about these things. I don't know. It's just, I think that's what breeds toxic fandom. Like, there was a billboard in LA that was like, that a group of people paid to have put up, that said something to the effect of, please, Marvel, bring back Tony Stark, bring him back to life and everything. Sincerely, the fans, or whatever. Yeah. Like, it was something, and I'm like, fucking no. Like, that is a complete story arc of, like, a character arc throughout a decade of films. Like, fuck you if you can't see it being like a completed thing. Like, you only want, like, that's where I kind of draw the line. When a fandom or someone is a fan of something, that it creates this idea in them that thing that they're a fan of is impervious to any kind of criticism. That bugs me. Fuck Star Wars. So, so yeah. Anyway, Loki. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Thoughts on Loki?
Or on what I just said? Stuff about fandom.
Well said.
Oh, thank you. I was fishing for that. Because if you had any criticisms about what I said, it's going to be...
No, I can tell you guys for a fact, I would be living a totally different lifestyle if Disney actually did pay me.
Right.
So,
yes.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. But yeah, so okay, so you have seen most of the MCU movies. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you haven't read any of the comics or anything?
No.
Okay.
No. I'll just say no. Okay. I mean, I've picked up Spider-Man graphic novel once or twice, but
okay.
Yeah.
But it's not like you have like a pull list from a comic shop that has a bunch of stuff.
No.
Okay, gotcha. So, me neither. I don't really read comics or anything, but so this will be a fun conversation. But I am a very big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And like I said in the intro to this, I was not very interested in a Loki TV series. Specifically because it felt on the surface like it would be fan service, because Loki, spoilers for the MCU. Obviously, we're not going to spoil Loki yet, but spoilers for the MCU. The character of Loki throughout the whole history of the MCU, starting in, I think, 2010 with Thor. I think that was 2011. I keep getting those confused on Patreon and everything, and I still have not looked it up. Ben is reaching for his phone, so thank you. So he's going to be my savior on this. But
2011.
2011. Okay. So since his introduction in Thor, like, he has been a fan favorite villain throughout the MCU. And
fan favorite of my wife too.
Right. Yes. And that's because, I mean, he's an entertaining character. He's very mercurial. You don't know what side he's on. He's mischievous. He's the god of mischief. And also Tom Hiddleston is ridiculously charming and ridiculously fun in the role. And my whole thing up until Infinity War, really, I thought that, like, throughout most of the Marvel movies, they had a villain problem.
Mm-hmm.
It is like there's a lot of cookie cutter villains that aren't very interesting. I'm thinking of Ronan the Accuser and Guardians of the Galaxy and a bunch of other villains. Abomination and, well, no, he's a good one in Incredible Hulk. But I don't know. There's a bunch of just kind of cookie cutter and two-dimensional villains throughout the MCU. And when people celebrate Loki as like, oh, he's this great villain and everything, I have taken a little bit of pause with that, because like he's charismatic. Because like in the Avengers in 2012, he's just, I mean, he brings an army of Chitauri to New York and kills Coulson and does a bunch of stuff. It's like he's not like a diabolical villain person.
But I think most of the appeal with him is because of Thor. Like, if he didn't have Thor, he would just be another cookie cutter villain.
Absolutely. Are you saying Thor the movie or Thor the character?
Character.
Okay, yes, because he's a foil for Thor.
And he's jealous of Thor.
Yeah. And the first two Thor movies aren't that great, but Ragnarok was amazing. And when he, again, spoilers for the MCU, in Infinity War, when in the opening scene, Thanos just snaps his neck, it's like that. I felt, and I said this in the review when we did it a few years ago, that felt like such a monumental moment, because here we have a villain who has been waiting in the wings for 20-some movies, suddenly make his like grand entrance in the MCU, and having the like previous like most celebrated and like most fan favorite villain of the MCU up till that point try to take the new villain out, only to have his neck snapped just as easily as anything. That sends a very interesting message. And Infinity War was a great Thanos movie.
That was like the start of that movie too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that God, that movie's so freaking great. But when Loki's talking to Thanos, he says the line that Tony Stark said to him in the Avengers. He's like, "We have a Hulk," and then the Hulk comes and tries to beat up Thanos. That's a fucking incredible scene. But all of that is to say that I felt like that was a great closing of that character arc for the MCU. So having him come into his own show felt like I was very hesitant about it.
Yeah.
And that's how I was going into Loki. Should we go into our actual thoughts about Loki, our non-spoiler thoughts?
Might as well.
Okay. So right from the outset, I freaking love the show. Right from the get-go, I was so enamored with the aesthetic of the TVA. Because this is playing up after Endgame, where 2012 Loki takes the Tesseract when the Avengers bungle getting all the Infinity Stones to go back in time, all that stuff. But he takes it, and then he is taken by the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, to be pruned and taken away from the timeline that he created by taking the Tesseract. So I just loved the aesthetic of that. How did you feel about the feel of the of this world that was created with the TVA, and also Owen Wilson as well as Mobius.
I did really like the look of it as well. Yeah, it has a very, it's just a very unique look. Kind of a 50s or 60s ish vibe. Just a very kind of bland kind of looking office environment. Just a kind of Mad Men aesthetic, kind of
a bureaucracy kind of thing.
Yes.
It's like the MCU's Ikiru. Just drowning in paperwork.
Yes. And yeah, Owen Wilson, what a pleasant surprise.
Did you not know that he was in it?
Not until it debuted.
Oh,
no, I did not watch any trailers. I didn't see any promos. I saw like the promo image of the campaign Loki or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that very prominently, and was kind of intrigued by that, but nothing beyond that. No.
Nice. Awesome. So what was your first impressions about the kind of show overall and non-spoilers?
So I think I liked it overall, but I'm definitely less hot on it than you.
Nice. Okay.
I liked it, and I'm excited for season 2, but I think there are some things left to be desired from it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really wish that it was longer than 6 episodes.
Me too.
And yeah, I'm sure they knew from the get-go that it was going to be more than one season, but still, like the arc of this season, I feel like could have lasted another 2 or 3, maybe 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same way, and I think I feel the same way mostly because I wanted to live in this world a lot longer.
Yeah.
Have you listened to my Patreon episodes?
Yes.
Reviewing? Okay. Except for episode 6, which was recorded like an hour ago.
Yeah. Can we pause the recording and then I can listen to that now?
Absolutely. But no. Yeah. So, I was obviously very hot on it and very excited about it. And I'm very curious, when we go into spoilers, how you feel about, the greater, implications for the MCU because of it, because I was so, like, it's funny because like in my Patreon reviews, I'm so glad that I did that because throughout it, I'm not going to say that because I'll save that for spoilers. But anyway, how do you feel about time travel in fiction in general, in multiverse kind of ideas and branching timelines and stuff? Are you someone who is attracted to that kind of science fiction? And how did you feel about the implementation of it in this series?
Yeah, I like time travel in general. I think there's certain time travel movies that kind of like if I spend too much time with them, my head explodes. So it's very easy to get lost in just the way that the time travel itself works, since it's obviously nothing that we will ever experience firsthand.
Well, let's not get carried away. Maybe.
I mean, maybe that's what Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson and Elon Musk are ultimately working towards.
Yeah, I do have an anecdote that when I was at USI with Mike, our last night before the end of the year, before we all went home, we went to Applebee's or something as a big dinner with our friends and everything, and I remember. I was sitting there and this guy who looked exactly like me was seated walked in and was seated at a table, across the way. And there's a picture somewhere of me at the table, pointing at the guy in the background. So I always thought okay, this guy is future me or something. He hasn't come to visit or anything. Yeah. Anyway, so that was weird.
I thought of a great Patreon question that we are too late for.
Damn.
Who you would want to play the alternate timeline version of yourself.
Oh, damn, that's a good one. Wow. Okay, yeah. We'll save that for next time.
Okay.
For when season 2 comes out. But yeah, I'm on record as loving time travel in fiction and everything. I'm someone who doesn't get flustered or anything with the mechanics of time travel, as long as it fits, as long as the rules, the interior rules of the fiction piece of fiction work and follow a certain logical like progression. It doesn't break my brain because I can kind of just lose myself in the logic of the interior logic of the media. Having said that, what are some of your standouts time travel movies, just off the cuff, and what are ones that you hate because it's too complicated? If you say some titles, would it be a good primer of have you ever seen Primer?
No.
Okay, then that was a lost joke. Or Lost. Anyway,
Yeah.
time travel.
We'll come back to Lost, I'm sure. Favorite time travel movies. I mean, Back to the Future, obviously, very good. What are some other ones?
I have
not Brick, but Looper.
Yeah. Looper, Terminator.
Sure.
There's a Spanish film called Time Crimes that I'm a huge fan of by I think Nacho Vigilante did that one. Yeah. There's a bunch that I'm a big fan of. Source Code, Avengers Endgame. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff. Obviously, Back to the Future is all time. 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
Yeah. Time Crimes is so good. Yeah, so anyway, how'd you feel? Did we already talk about the mechanics of time travel in this movie?
Let's go back in time and figure it out.
Yes, okay. So Ben, you're making your debut appearance on the fuck, we went too far back.
Tell me your thoughts on this, because I was kind of struck throughout the whole season just how little superhero shit there was throughout the whole season. Like Loki and the other variants kind of, or the other Lokis, like have their own abilities, but they don't really use them all that much.
And see,
it's not like, you know, again, I haven't watched them, but no Falcon and Winter Soldier. There weren't any, you know, huge action set pieces. I
agree, and honestly, it's kind of refreshing a little bit. And it's the same as like with WandaVision was the same thing. What I love about what they're doing with the Disney Plus shows is that they're very much, on one hand, they're very much interconnecting with the greater MCU, which I'm relieved by, because the stakes are high and they are factoring into the greater MCU. And also they are telling more fleshed out stories in that regard. Like, one of my favorite things about Loki was that, as I said before, I'm not too hot on the Loki character. And what they've done with this character in this show is they not only made me care about the character, but they turned a villain character who has done, like he's like he says in the show, he's backstabbed a bunch of people. He's done all of these horrible things. It's him confronting that and him recognizing that there is salvation with him in him. There is a chance for him to be, you know, a at least basically decent person. And what I love about that is it turns this villain character and creates a show focused on that villain, but doesn't create a Joker-esque origin story or a Suicide Squad-esque kind of anti-hero story. Cruella. Yeah. Instead, it creates in it, like, it takes this established villain character and creates an actually compelling and even sympathetic protagonist character. And I think that is really, really interesting in the greater scope of things. Like, there are moments in this where I felt for Loki. I felt for the character who brought a bunch of aliens to New York City and killed Coulson in Avengers.
Yep.
So yeah, I adore it. Yeah. And the time travel aspect of it is very interesting to me. We'll get into more of that in spoilers because it goes to some places that I'm very interested in. But yeah, what about anything else in non-spoilers?
Yeah, Tom Hiddleston, just his performance throughout this was another highlight. His chemistry with Owen Wilson was great. I think they, unfortunately, I mean, they did a really good job with that early on, and then it just kind of took a backseat to him and Sylvia.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have more time with them, but it appears in season 2 there might be more of that, the two of like him and Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
But it was a good way to start it out with the two of them and their chemistry together.
I agree. And I do think that it did a good job of balancing like his chemistry with Mobius and his chemistry with Sylvie. And also having just all of this potentially convoluted, but very entertaining time variance authority kind of stuff to it. Let me ask you this before we get into spoilers. Does this make you interested in watching The Falcon and the Winter Soldier or WandaVision?
I am sure I will watch WandaVision sooner or later. Like maybe before the end of the year.
Okay.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, probably not.
I can understand that. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was what I was most excited for out of the Disney Plus shows, and it is my least interested one.
Okay.
But again, what I really like about what they're doing with the Disney Plus shows is even with Falcon and the Winter Soldier being underwhelming, it does still create in it some things that are going to have more ramifications in the MCU going forward.
Yeah.
And
that's
required viewing.
And that's kind of what I find annoying about the whole MCU shows. Like, I don't want to have to watch these things to understand what's going on in the future movies. I think that's just annoying. And like, yeah, I know it's not, obviously it's not required in order to like, I'm still going to be able to understand what's going on in the movies going forward, but it feels like to fully understand it, I should watch these shows.
Yeah.
And I just find that annoying.
I can understand that. And I would say that, I mean, when I say it's required viewing, I mean, like, WandaVision, I think, is going to be required. Maybe not required. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it'll be important to watch WandaVision before, like, seeing Doctor Strange 2, because Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in Doctor Strange 2.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And also, I mean, characters from Loki are going to be in Ant-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2. So, I would say absolutely of the three, Loki is 100% required viewing for any MCU going forward, for reasons that we'll talk about in spoilers.
So you might have said this already. Is this your favorite MCU show?
Yes, 100%.
Followed by WandaVision.
And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Now, I know we asked this at the Black Widow screening to Evan, but I forget. What's the next MCU show?
Yes, so the next MCU show is actually the animated show What If, which comes out next month.
Okay. I thought that was out already.
No, What If comes out August 22nd, I think, and they just recently released a trailer for it. I think that might be what you're thinking of. But then after that, Evan had said that Hawkeye is going to be a Christmas show, I guess.
Yeah. Hawkeye is on the horizon for this year.
Yeah.
But I think he said something else is in between that.
I found an article that's like, here's everything that Marvel's coming out with in the next year or so. And like, it was so aggravating because it was just like, it wasn't a list separated by, like, it wasn't like a bullet point list separated by dates or anything. It was a just wall of text with titles in it, like in like paragraph sentences. So it was kind of annoying.
Oh, I can't tell if this is a TV show or a movie. I guess it's got to be a TV show because it's not part of the movie schedule. Miss Marvel.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a TV show.
Okay. So that's coming out late 2021.
Okay. I know She-Hulk is coming out. I don't know if that's going to be 2021 or 2022. Not
according to this article that I'm reading on thewrap.com.
Okay.
So Hawkeye has no release date, but it's on here between the Eternals and Spider-Man.
Okay. So yeah, that'll be between like September and I don't know. September and
November is when the Eternals comes out.
Okay. Damn, so that'll be between November and December.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's to the point where there's probably too much, and it's funny because a lot of people say like, oh, this is, I mean, superhero fatigue and everything, like that's a common thing, which I get. I understand that. I have not felt that yet. However, I kind of feel like maybe with the inclusion of Disney Plus shows coming out and with everything they have in Phase 4 and beyond, I kind of feel like it is definitely possible that it would be that it would be a little bit too much. Like
yeah, because they have something new coming out every month.
Yeah,
this year.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, after Loki, I'm super excited. So I don't know where my interest will begin to really wane with it and everything. But I'm floored by Loki.
I know nothing about Miss Marvel, but I'm curious.
Okay.
I don't even know who's going to be in it. So
yeah, I don't know enough about that one. I know that Hawkeye is going to have
Jeremy Renner,
and it's going to be him training like his protege, Kate Bishop, I think is the character's name, but she's going to be played by, why am I blanking on her name? Dickinson, Pitch Perfect 3.
Haley
Steinfeld.
Interesting.
Yeah, I believe, like, I'm 99% sure of that. And then for She-Hulk, Tatiana Maslany is going to play She-Hulk,
right?
Which I'm a huge fan of hers. So yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh will be in that.
Oh, nice. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense after Black Widow.
Yep.
Yeah. So having said all that, should we go into our spoiler review for Loki?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer, and when we come back, we are going to be spoiling Loki.
Please sign to verify this is everything you've ever said.
This is absurd.
Sign this too.
We protect the proper flow of time. You picked up the Tesseract, breaking reality. I want you to help us fix it. Why me? I need your unique Loki perspective.
Do I get a weapon?
Nah.
All right, and spoilers on for Loki Season 1 on Disney+. So, Ben, how do you feel about Loki and the greater MCU and everything after, like, how do you feel about the spoilerific stuff of Loki?
The finale I was kind of underwhelmed by, I think.
Interesting.
I liked the things that happened in it, and I especially liked Jonathan Majors, which we'll talk about more.
Yes.
But it really felt like a table setter episode to set up what would happen in season 2. And that was kind of disappointing.
And I understand that, and Mike had the same kind of reservations and everything. I'd actually asked Mike if he wanted to join us on this episode, but tonight's his movie night, so he was unavailable.
Priorities.
I know, but I understand that, and I agree with that yes, it is table setting. It is setting up stuff for season 2. But what I am floored by and fascinated by is that it's not just setting up season 2, but it's setting up the rest, like it's setting up phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and as someone who is a homer for these movies, and a big fan of time travel and everything, I am very, very interested. And I was very captivated by the lines and lines and lines and lines of dialogue and exposition. Specifically because on one hand, it was all interesting to me because I was thinking like, okay, this is he's Kang the Conqueror, which I didn't have any prior knowledge of or anything.
Yeah.
Like I think it's fucking hilarious to me because I did those Patreon reviews each week, and if you listen to them, I was very certain that like, oh, they're going to pull the wool over our eyes, and Mobius is going to be the big bad of the season. He's going to be the one pulling strings. Here are all the little clues that I've detected and everything.
Right.
Because they kept hinting at someone behind the scenes, and I was like, it has to be Mobius because there's no one else. And then, like I said in the Patreon review of episode 6, but I was like, but I had forgotten that there are decades and decades and decades and decades worth of comic books that this is pulling from. And I did not expect them to introduce what I'm hoping is the big bad of phase 4 and beyond. And if that is what they're doing, and we'll back up and we'll talk about the variant, we'll talk about Sylvie and all that stuff. But, if that's what they're doing, if that's what Kang the Conqueror is going to do, if he's going to be this phase's Thanos, I am fascinated by that because not only did it introduce him in a very interesting way,
yeah,
it introduced the concept that they can fucking do anything with him. Like it is so open and everything, which is also cause for alarm and concern as well. But already his first appearance in the MCU is more character development and more interesting backstory revealed than anything Thanos did up until Infinity War. And I find that to be very, very interesting. So yeah. So how did you feel about all that? And
well,
yeah.
Plus it's Jonathan Majors.
And it's Jonathan Majors.
I'll watch him in fucking anything pretty much. Even though I still need to watch Lovecraft Country.
Yeah, me too. I've heard great things.
Yes.
Apparently HBO didn't because they canceled it. But I mean, and he was. How did you feel about his performance? I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, really fun. Really, I feel like just about any other actor would have made that just not as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Last Black Man in San Francisco, he's incredible in.
Fantastic.
Yes. So I'm very curious to see what they do with him, and how much he will even factor into season 2. I mean, I guess he has to be. But I didn't know that he. Maybe I had read this a while ago and had forgotten it. But I didn't know that he had been cast in the next Ant-Man movie.
Yep. He's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp,
Quantumania.
Mania? And he's going to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about the implications for the MC going forward, but let's backtrack and go to the variant aspect of it. How did you feel about the introduction of Sylvie as one of Loki's variants? And their relationship as it grew throughout the 6 episodes.
I liked the actress is Sylvia DiMartino, I think, something like
Sophia.
that. Okay. I liked her. I liked her performance. Her character wasn't really shaded out all that well. And I believe you talked pretty regularly, like we don't know what her Nexus event was.
Yeah.
We get that she was like, she's been running pretty much all her life, or like trying to get revenge on the TVA pretty much all her life, or for a long time anyway.
Yeah.
And so that aspect of her is really interesting, but beyond that, we don't really know a whole lot about her. I'm curious how much they'll be able to do with her in season 2, since she's so, at least as of right now, she's so far away from Loki and everyone else.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say everyone's pretty far away from everyone now. Yeah, I was very into their kind of chemistry and everything. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it was very apt that Loki would develop feelings for himself.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was really good for the character. How'd you feel about Mobius and his jet ski obsession?
Great. Yeah, it's Owen Wilson just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, he has this very this earnestness to him, and this that's why I was literally terrified that they were going to make him be like a villain character, because I did not want that to happen. And like that moment in the void where Loki like hugs him goodbye was like, I was touched by that. I thought that was just very sincere and sweet.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to talking about how the show develops Loki, the character, the villain character, into a sympathetic protagonist in a very interesting way and very satisfying way.
Yeah.
Just really good stuff.
I read one review today that said something like, I hope that the Mobius in the timeline at the end of this season and in season 2 is the Mobius that has ridden on a jet ski.
Right. Yes. Oh yeah. That is the dream. How'd you feel about the kind of influences in the show? Like I was surprised that like the second or third episode kind of turns in. It was definitely the second episode when they're searching for the variant. Turns into this very Seven-esque detective homage kind of thing, and I was just like, this is so weird and fun and energetic. How did you feel about all that?
Yeah, it plays around with a couple different genres throughout the whole season. Really, like it starts out as kind of a buddy cop kind of thing, and then a procedural thing in episode 2, and then it pivots in the second half to like a romantic comedy kind of thing with Loki and Sylvie. So I think most of those elements worked pretty well. It would have been nice, like I said, to have more episodes and to have more time between Loki and Mobius, because we don't get a whole lot after those first 2 or 3.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was kind of disappointed about, and something that makes me kind of nervous about the MCU going forward with this whole multiverse thing, is the scene in, I think, episode 4 or episode 4, where Mobius gets pruned and he's gone. Like in that moment, I was like, I'm feeling for this. Like this is a very, very interesting kind of end to that arc and everything. And then in that same episode, at the end of the episode, Loki gets pruned, and so okay, like death doesn't matter in the show. They're going to come back, which makes me nervous going forward with the multiple timelines thing, because I want the dead to stay dead in the MCU. I don't want it to be a comic book thing.
Yeah, this isn't Game of Thrones.
Right.
I will say the 5th episode is hands down my favorite of the season.
Nice.
I really liked all of the interactions between Loki and all the other Lokis.
Yeah. Richard E. Grant. Amazing.
I know, yeah. I don't know how, but I hope that they can bring him back in season 2. I mean, I would take a whole season of just them, hanging out and shooting the shit and griping about different things. And, I really enjoyed that episode.
Nice. The kind of big brawl thing in the bunker, that kind of wore a little bit thin with me. It kind of felt a little bit too over the top and silly. But other than that, I thought that it was incredible. Like I made this joke on Patreon, but it really spoke to me because the episode was an episode of a TV show. It's a TV show that this particular episode was set on a desolate place where people are taken to against their will, and
kind of
trying to escape
purgatory.
from- Yeah, with a bunker that they access with a hatch and a scary monster that is presented to them as giant pillars of smoke. So anyway, it just reminded me of Lost, and I loved it. But the visual effects in that were just stunning.
Yeah.
And oh my god, the visual effects in the final episode, just like that opening sequence of just space and zooming out and everything, and then going to the timeline, and just the visual representation of that is just freaking just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Really cool stuff, and it makes up for the kind of shoddy green screen effects in the third episode, Lamentus, which was my least favorite episode of the season. How'd you feel about that one?
Same.
Yeah. I respect it for how it kind of feels like a Doctor Who kind of thing. Did you ever watch Doctor Who?
No.
Okay. So Doctor Who is kind of a similar kind of feel. Like it's this cheesy kind of time travel thing and science fiction thing. And so I dug it for that reason, but it felt for a show that has 6 episodes, it felt like a filler episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was missing Mobius, I was missing the TVA. It just felt just really, I don't know. Yeah.
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 The other big gripe that I had with the finale was the plot line with Gugu Mbatha-Raw.
Yeah. Renslayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't care about any of that.
Me too.
And I don't know where that's going.
That's my problem, because I was certain while I was watching it that she was going to show up at the Citadel at the end of time, and she was going to be the one to kill Kang, or something was going to happen there. But no, that's not the case. Like it's just setting up season 2. Like that's something. I love the setting up for future seasons and for the future of the MCU with introducing Kang the Conqueror. I love that because of the implications of what's to come. I don't like that dangling thread of Renslayer leaving and not knowing where she's going or not knowing what her intention is. She's going to find free will, so whatever. So that felt a little empty to me. And her final confrontation with Mobius, I kind of feel like Mobius in that timeline should have had a little bit better of a closure or some kind of end. I don't know. Maybe like something more in that timeline. But yeah.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the ending and the greater implications for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what I was floored by is, so there have been rumors that like Spider-Man No Way Home, which comes out in December, is going to be all messed up and weird. And this kind of really confirms that as a possibility. And obviously it has very big ramifications for Doctor Strange 2. Like there were a lot of memes on Twitter that's like pictures of people like being like angry and stuff, says like this is Doctor Strange watching like at the end of Loki, and it's like the picture of Community where Donald Glover walks in with the pizza and everything's on fire and everything else. But like the greater ramifications is that my hope is that going forward, the Phase 4 movies and shows and everything are going to go maybe not all in, but they are going to very heavily explore the broken timelines, the alternate universes, the chaos that's unfolding. And what I hope is at the heart of it that Kang the Conqueror is going to be ever present in it. And I don't know when they'll eventually get to like a big team up movie experience like Endgame.
Right.
But I think if they play it right and they do enough laying of the groundwork through multiple movies over however many years, I think they could have a big huge event film that could rival Endgame.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know another way to in the next Spider-Man movie to introduce all these other canonical Spider-Man without doing some kind of garbage nonsense about a messed up timeline.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that theory has got to be correct.
Yeah. And I don't know, like there were a lot of tweets that were like, now they can finally release a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer because now they've kind of played their hand that this is what's going forward in the MCU. So that's all exciting. I'm not sure how in the grander scheme of things, I'm not entirely sure how interesting that would make Spider-Man No Way Home, because I need to rewatch Far From Home, but like, I don't know. I kind of want a more grounded New York Spider-Man movie.
I did not like Far From Home.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to revisit that because I'm working on a list of rankings of MCU stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah. How'd you feel about the final confrontation between Sylvie and Loki, and Sylvie pushing him off into what ends up being an alternate timeline, and her killing Kang the Conqueror?
I was okay with it. I think it could have been much more effective if, like I said, if they could have shaded her character anymore.
Yeah.
But I liked the implication of like the choice that they had to make, whether they kill him or they just like take over as the head of the TVA or whatever. I liked the choice and the implications that it has and the ramifications that it has. Yeah. And so I don't know 100% if it makes sense for the character of Sylvie to want chaos. But I liked the choice that presented.
Yeah, I think her main kind of struggle was that, like she says, she's been working toward that for her entire life. And that is more revenge for the TVA robbing her of her life. Right. Essentially. And I think I feel like it's less about creating this free will machine and more about taking vengeance on the TVA. I think there's a fair amount of it that is wanting that free will kind of thing to be introduced, but it's all pretty interesting. Also, I won't go into specifics, but because I don't want to spoil Lost, but the kind of conundrum at the end of this show was very Lostian, which I'm not going to say it was a ripoff or anything, but I will say that I liked it. I'm the audience for that conundrum. Yeah. So, the final scene where we see Loki finding Mobius and Mobius saying he doesn't know who he is. And then Loki looks and sees that massive statue of Kang the Conqueror. How'd you feel about that? How do you feel about the implication of where it's going to go in season 2? How do you feel about this? Do you feel overwhelmed at all? Am I leading the witness?
I liked the setup, and I don't know. I don't know what how it's going to look in season 2, and I'm okay with that.
Nice.
I'm not going to lose sleep trying to pull threads and figure out what the hell is going on. So,
right. And also, when do you think season 2 is going to be? Because I'm curious about. Because I don't know where it's going to fall in the kind of greater timeline of the MCU. Also, I had this idea that I mentioned on Patreon. So sorry if I'm retreading things for the Patreon supporters, but there's no way that they're going to do this. There's no way that this is something that's going to happen. But my hope is that season 2 is 12 episodes. So I hope that it's expanded from the standard 6 that have been in all the MCU shows. Yeah. But what I hope that what I would hope that they do, what I wish that they would do if they did expand it to 12 episodes, is make it release weekly, but release 2 episodes each week. And each episode, like, tell 2 different timelines. So the 2 episodes that release on one day are the same stretch of time between Loki on one timeline and Loki in the other timeline, and see how much they diverge from each other as the season progresses. That's my dream. I don't think that they would ever do something that high concept or anything, but I think that would be very interesting.
Is that your pitch to get into the writer's room?
That is my pitch to get in the writer's room. I have several samples of spec scripts, mostly about the adventures of me and Pizza, my cat. My working title for the feature script of that is Protecting My Day, a pizza roll story. Yeah, I know. And now that I've said it, no one can take it. So anyway, anything else on Loki?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for me.
Nice. Yeah, same here. I'm very much looking forward to what's to come next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm very much a fan of the show. Are you going to watch What If?
No.
Okay, interesting. I'm curious about What If because it's an animated show it's kind of an anthology show. It is, each episode is a different, like, kind of what if kind of thing. I don't foresee it having bigger implications in the MCU. Well, now that this happened in the Marvel Cinematic and at the end of Loki, maybe it will. I don't fucking know. But I like the idea of kind of a one shot, like a bunch of shows being one shot, a bunch of episodes being like one shot kind of things in the MCU. So yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Where did you land on going back and watching WandaVision? And you said you'd probably watch WandaVision and probably not watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting because Falcon and the Winter Soldier is definitely the most conventional Marvel Cinematic Universe show. There was some good in it. There was some good in it. I liked it. All right. Well, that's our review of Loki. Do you want to wind down with a potpourri section, Ben?
Let's do it.
All right. So for our listeners, potpourri is a section where we kind of wind down and talk about things we've watched lately, things we're looking forward to, anything we want, as long as it smells good. And Ben, I have a few things that I want to bring up, if you don't mind. First, do you mind if I go first?
I do not mind.
Okay, so first up, I want to talk about a movie that you and I watched together at the Living Room Theater. For the $10 patrons, you can get a special unreleased recording that we did outside of the theater. Ben, how did you Werewolves Within? I will go ahead and read a plot summary courtesy of IMDb that I did not think to pull up on my phone. Werewolves Within stars Sam Richardson and Milana Vaintrub. It is directed by Josh Rubin and written by Mishna Wolf. Funny. Okay, the plot summary for Werewolves Within is feature adaptation of the video game where werewolves attack a small town. And Ben, I was pretty excited to watch this movie. I hadn't known much about it or anything, but I am a huge fan of Sam Richardson. From I Think You Should Leave and Detroiters. So overall, I thought that this movie was solid. It didn't really blow my hair back or anything. It made me very interested in following the career of Milana Vaintrub.
Yes.
Because I thought she did a phenomenal job, incredibly charming, incredibly personable, and the chemistry she had with Sam Richardson was really good.
And funny.
And hilarious. Funny.
Yeah.
So it was good. A lot of it felt like I said to Tiny, I think I said this on page. I don't know where I said it. It may not have been recorded, but I told him, he mentioned something about being interested in watching Werewolves Within, or I asked him if he was, and then I said, "You've seen The Thing, right?" And he said, "Yes, of course." And then I said, "You've seen The Faculty, right?" And he said, "Yes, of course." And I was like, "You've seen Werewolves Within," because it is very derivative of that type of movie.
I would also throw in Clue.
Yes,
a little bit.
Yep, and I mean it was fine. It was entertaining, but it did kind of feel like it overstayed its welcome a little bit. How did you feel about Werewolves Within? Since we didn't get a chance to talk about it, really.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well for all the same reasons. I mean, we are an official Sam Richardson podcast, so just another reason to love him. And yeah, same with Milana Vaintrub. And I also Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. Fantastic here. Plus just a bunch of other just solid character actors who I am sure that I recognize from other things, but I couldn't put my finger on them.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a silly little indie comedy horror, kind of one of those movies that just doesn't get made as often as it should.
Right.
I really liked the any of the scenes where just all of the characters were just together and just kind of bounced off of each other.
Yeah.
And it was just silly, and they all got to just kind of react to one another.
Yeah.
I thought that those were some of the better parts of the movie.
Me too.
And then, outside of that, it's fine.
Yeah. I agree.
That and the scenes. There's a scene kind of early on with Sam Richardson and Milana Vaintrub just together for just kind of walking around and going throughout the town.
Yeah.
That was kind of the highlight for me.
Same here. Like their whole kind of meet cute kind of energy was by far the best part of the movie for me. Like even though I knew that I was watching a horror comedy and everything, I really felt for that kind of connection that formed between them, that kind of quirky energy. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my potpourri, my first potpourri. Werewolves Within. I believe it's available to rent digitally now.
Yes, it's on VOD. It's still in theaters, I believe. I think it's still at the Living Room Theater too.
Nice.
So another reason to check that place out.
Yeah. Ben, what do you have for potpourri?
Let's see. Okay, so I'll talk about the concert documentary Summer of Soul.
Oh, interesting.
Or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised, which is in theaters and on Hulu. And this is directed by Questlove. I don't have his legal name in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
Amir Khalib Thompson.
Okay.
So it's a concert documentary about this music festival that happened in Harlem in 1969, like at the same time as Woodstock. And it was kind of branded as like the Black Woodstock. And it's this cultural celebration. Like they had like Nina Simone and Stevie Wonder and Morris Chestnut, I want to say. Just a ton of just famous B.B. King, Mavis Staples, David Ruffin, Sly and the Family Stone, just tons of great musical acts. And it's concert footage of them, plus these talking heads talking about the importance of this place and how it was just really like a getaway for these people in Harlem who lived in this community where it was, they were facing poverty and racism and drugs and just all of this stuff. And it's a really fascinating look at this footage actually like was in a basement for 50 years or so.
Oh, wow.
And nobody knew that it existed outside of the people that attended the festival. So it's just this great like footage that nobody has ever really seen before. So
Wow.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the best movies of the year so far.
Nice.
I guess I've come to learn this about myself this year and recently, that I just kind of by default just love concert documentaries.
Interesting.
There's something about them that I always enjoy.
Nice.
The ones that I have seen so far. So this was just great. Just some great performances, some really introspective talking heads. And it's all just assembled really nicely.
Very cool. I mean, I've heard incredible things about it, and I believe it's Questlove's debut, directorial debut. As
Correct.
Well. Do you? I mean, how did he fare as a director?
Good.
Nice. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, he gets some good interviews with his subjects.
Nice.
Like he interviews this guy who attended the festival and has, like I said, never seen the footage.
Wow.
And he shows him some of the footage. And like at one point, he just like breaks down and cries.
Oh, wow.
Just watching it because it's just so profound. And he has just such a fond memory. And there's even like it ran through for like 6 weeks or something. And it was only like on Saturdays or Sundays or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the days coincided with, I think, the moon landing, or it was it was very close to it. So there's a section in there where they interview some of the concert goers and they talk about the moon landing and like how they feel about it, and they're all just like, I don't give a shit about the moon landing. Like, we're fucking starving here, and there are drugs and crimes, and we need schools and all this stuff, and the government is, spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to go to the moon. Like, that's money that could be used to help us,
Huh.
It's
that's true.
It's fascinating.
Wow. Huh. Maybe when Jeff Bezos flies up into space next week or whenever, or this week if you're listening when this comes out, I don't fucking know, but I don't care. But maybe that'll put it in perspective, and he'll give away maybe a couple billion of his net worth.
Maybe
help end poverty. Jesus. So anyway, well, that's cool. That's on Hulu and in theaters. It's Summer of Love.
Correct. And there was a press screening for this movie the same time as the Black Widow screening.
Right.
And honestly, I wish that I would have gone to this. Yeah. Because I feel like it would be great to see in a theater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that's cool. Nice. Are you going to write a review of it?
Probably not.
Okay, that's fine. Well, speaking of getting to see things in theaters, my next potpourri is something that is going to be in theaters for one night only. I don't know when, because I don't have that information.
The 22nd of July.
Nice. So July 22nd, you can see the Netflix comedy special by Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham Inside is my next potpourri. I watched this kind of late at night on like last Saturday or something. Kind of on a whim, not on a whim, but like I had been putting off watching it, not for any reason other than I'm mad hurt, and that's what I do in my spare time is I put off watching shit. But I watched it having been a big fan of Bo Burnham, kind of a latecomer to Bo Burnham, but I'm a big fan of his Make Happy special and What as well. Those two are kind of on constant rotation in terms of like music from it that I have streaming on my app, and just something that I'll watch in the background. I think he is a brilliant performer. And so the context is that he released his last special in, I think, 2016, Make Happy, and that was kind of his unofficial retirement from stand-up, from performing live. And like that has a very beautiful ending where it shows him kind of at a piano playing out the last song, and then he opens the door and goes outside, and like there's this image of like a child that he picks up and everything. He doesn't have kids, but like it's supposed to be like a vision of the future for him. It's a very nice send off to his performing life and everything, live performances. And so now, throughout quarantine and throughout the pandemic, he created this special called Bo Burnham Inside. It takes place entirely within one room of his home, the same room that's at the end of Make Happy. And this special, holy shit, it is incredibly moving, incredibly visceral, and I can honestly say two things. One, it by itself is better than any movie that I've watched this year that's released in 2021.
Wow.
So far. And two, is that I honestly think that it does what really good performing and like in terms of like comedy and everything does what really good art does. And it reflects a time in our culture, and it is a fascinating kind of time capsule to what kind of the communal anxiety that I feel that America and the world at large experienced throughout 14, 15 months of quarantining and fear and anxiety of coronavirus and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, like, he has this way about him that he puts so much of himself into his performance and into his art that, like, I talked to Mike about this, and he said that he had read an article where he kind of talking about the difference, like the synergy of performance, like the relationship that Bo Burnham has with performance, with audience, and with himself, and how like it's an interesting mix, and how it's how like some of it is performance and some of it is not authentic, but it is speaking to a higher thing. But I'm here to say I don't care. I don't care if like he didn't, like if the little interstitials that he has throughout it where he's depressed and he's talking about his depression very openly and everything. I don't care if that's performance. I don't care if that is something that he is putting in that special as just kind of like I said, performance, an inauthentic performance, specifically because I feel like the range of emotion and the energy, like I said, this is very visceral. I feel like that is very, very reflective. Like I related so much to the stuff in this special, because I, as well as everyone else, lived through this pandemic. And what's interesting is he doesn't really even like call attention to the pandemic itself. It's very like in the moment and very present. I don't know. I loved it. Yeah. And just the artistry of it, the beauty of it. Like it's fucking amazing. Like I don't understand it. I don't understand how it can be conceived.
Yeah. I like you kind of brushed over this, but he did all of this himself. He wrote it, he directed it, he performed it, obviously, he edited it,
shot it,
he wrote the songs, he did the cinematography. I think there's like one or two credits that are not credited
to
him,
like producer credits,
right?
Yeah.
But other than that, it's all him.
Yeah,
and I love the little stitches you get of like him setting up a shot and messing with the lighting, and that very homemade aspect is just part of the appeal of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the variety, and because it's not like him standing in the room speaking and everything. He does so much with that space and creates all of these very just intricate and interesting and different things about it.
Funny
and
things.
Hilarious. Yeah. Yes. White Woman's Instagram is the video portion of that is freaking brilliant. Like I don't understand. I can't imagine how much time he spent crafting all of those little pieces but the actual song is freaking hilarious. It is so great. That and the
sexting bit were very
so
great visual moments.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember when I saw 8th grade in, I think 2018, I was just enamored with it. And I remember telling Kirsten and telling everyone on the podcast and everything. I remember like my immediate reaction was, I really hope that he has more like film stuff in his mind. Like I hope that he has more stories to tell in the film medium. And like, I mean, this just compounds that.
Yes.
Just the brilliance.
Just makes us more anxious to see what he does next.
Absolutely.
As a director.
Yeah. There's a little part of the song "All Eyes on Me." It's probably my favorite song of the whole special. But there's a part where he tells a story, and his voice is distorted, but he says, "I quit performing live 5 years ago because I was having panic attacks on stage, and that's not a good place to have them. So I quit, and I decided to get myself better and everything. And then he goes through all that. And then he says, and then I thought in January 2020 that maybe I should start performing again. I've gotten better. I should re-enter the world. And then he's like, and then the funniest thing happened. And like, I don't know. I adored this. I kept thinking, and this is very big hyperbole, but I'm just like, I wanted to tweet this just ridiculous, like, over the top thing and just be like, I don't understand how there are people in the world today creating art and everything when Bo Burnham exists. Like, that was my kind of just like tongue-in-cheek, over the top kind of hyperbole thing. But also, I don't understand how, but no, I was so taken with this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So because this is another debate about the special, do you qualify this as a movie?
Not. No, I did not log it on Letterboxd, and it will not be on my top 10 or anything because I do not believe it to be a feature-length film.
Okay.
It is feature-length. It is filmed.
Yes.
But I don't believe it is a film. Yeah.
Okay.
I will go to my grave defending that. But it is better than any movie that I've seen this year. Yeah.
Okay.
So far.
Nice.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, or do you want to give your next potpourri?
No. No.
Or do you have another potpourri?
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
Okay.
So I'll talk about the new season of Master of None.
Oh yes, because we never did an episode about that. Sorry.
It's kind of weird. Like, it came out like a month and a half ago, and it feels so long ago already.
Yeah.
It feels it almost feels like it just came out and was instantly forgotten.
Yeah.
And
what was the subtitle of it?
Moments in Love.
Okay. Yeah, Moments in Love.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it just feels like it just didn't have the same fanfare as the past seasons.
Yeah.
And just came and went, and it's weird. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it is very good.
Nice.
It's 5 episodes, and it's a very different feel from previous seasons of Master of None. Like, so the story centers on Lena Waithe, her character Denise, and her relationship with her, as it starts out, her wife. I'm blanking on her name and the actress that played her.
Jeez, where is it? No, I don't know.
Naomi Ackie.
Gotcha.
Yes. So it focuses on their relationship, and it's really not. So Aziza Ansari pops up in the first episode, and another episode, I forget which one exactly, 4th or 5th. But he's only in it just a little bit.
Right.
So the focus is mostly on Lena Waithe's character, and Lena Waithe is great. She's a great actress.
Yeah.
I think she, I
believe she wrote it with Aziz Ansari, and Aziz Ansari, did he direct every episode?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. So the way that they write these stories is just great. It's so grounded and so believable and dramatic. And it doesn't fall into these stereotypes of like the whole time I was just, I didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
And it's just a very human and very often heartbreaking look at like relationships and long-term relationships and how the ups and downs that they go through. Just great. It's definitely not as funny as the first 2 seasons, but that's okay with me.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. The other thing that I was struck by And Matt, you will appreciate this especially, but I felt some very strong Ozu vibes in this.
Interesting.
Like the way that it's directed. I'm fairly certain the camera throughout the entire 5 episodes, I don't think the camera moves at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought that was really a really interesting choice, because a lot of the scenes play out in these long takes, and it makes it feel just that much more real. Like it's like a fly on the wall kind of look at what's going on in this story. So I was really impressed with Master of None.
Nice. It's interesting because I've said this before, but I don't put a lot of stock in the IMDb user ratings. But I can't help but notice that the Moments in Love episodes are drastically lower rated from users than seasons 1 and 2. I mean, it looks like an average of like 5.8, 6 point whatever out of 10. So I'm curious. Because I thought that it was being pretty well received. But like you said, it kind of came and went.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to check
may
it out.
have to do with the internet's inherent homophobia.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Not to mention they're both black actors, and yeah,
that's a good point. Well, you know what I mean. That unfortunately makes sense.
Yes.
But I will check it out eventually and report back.
Like I said, it's 5 episodes. It's very easily digestible. Like the first episode is like 50-ish minutes long. The rest of them are like half an hour.
Nice.
Except there's one other one, maybe the 4th episode, that might be 50 minutes as well.
Okay.
But actually the 4th episode is probably the best of the season. And Lena Waithe's character I don't think shows up in it at all.
Oh,
I don't think it's focused on Naomi Aki and this struggle that she goes through to try and get pregnant. And
interesting.
It's very well done. It's a great episode.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm gonna need to watch it.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that is Master of None, Moments in Love. It is on Netflix. And do you mind if I round us out for the evening with my final potpourri segment?
Go for it.
Okay. This is a movie that I believe we have both watched. Available on Amazon Prime. It is The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt and Sam Richardson also.
Yep.
Yeah, so to read a plot summary, again, not had it.
You might say that this is the summer of Sam.
I've seen people say that, and it also has Ivan Strahovski and J.K. Simmons, a ripped J.K. Simmons.
And Marilyn Rice Cub.
Betty Gilpin, Edwin Hodge, and a bunch of people. Oh, Mike Mitchell also.
Yes, which is the only reason that I had any desire to watch this.
Oh, really?
Because do you listen to the Doughboys podcast?
I don't, but I've heard good things. I should.
He's one of the co-hosts of that, and
nice.
That was the only reason that I had known about it from the get-go.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so The Tomorrow War is plot summary courtesy of IMDb is a family man is drafted to fight in a future war where the fate of humanity relies on his ability to confront the past. So I watched this movie because I like science fiction. I like time travel. I like I'm a fan of these kinds of science fiction action movies to an extent. You know exactly what you're going to get. And I mean, it's big, stupid fun. I don't think too hard about it or anything. Overall, The Tomorrow War I thought was okay. I've got to say, and I tweeted this and it still bugged me quite a bit. I don't understand why every single movie that has like an alien presence or some kind of monster in it, why the fuck the monster has to look so much like the Cloverfield monster. Like, this even goes to like a franchise that I actually really like, A Quiet Place. Like, it just looks like the Cloverfield monster. Like, I don't get it. Like, I tweeted a snarky thing that's like, okay, attention everyone involved in movies in Hollywood. It's okay to make a unique monster that doesn't look like the Cloverfield monster. It's been like 13 years. Let it go.
And I'll add on to that. They don't all have to make clicking noises.
Yes. Same. Yeah.
And I listened to one podcast where they talked about this movie, and they were raving about the design of the aliens.
I don't get that.
They do look scary.
Yeah.
But yes, they are pretty derivative.
Yeah, totally. Having said that, also just, I know I said that I don't really think too much about the concept or anything, but also like, I kind of feel like the future should have had better weapons prepared for them, because I mean, you shoot it and it's nothing.
Right.
So like, those little things aside, I did appreciate the time travel stuff in it. There's some cool stuff with Chris Pratt and Yvonne Strahovski in it. The one thing that I really wish would have been explored more and more of a figure thing is, I wish that the kind of the setup was a little bit more detailed, because there's a really good scene where they're being like, the premise, as I said, is basically like people are drafted into being sent to the future to fight in this war, and they go into the future at the kind of parallel point of where they're at now. But they have like a wristband that it's like they're there for 7 days. If they're still alive in 7 days, it automatically brings them back to the present, and then that's their tour. So there's a scene where Sam Richardson and Chris Pratt are talking as they're being kind of instructed by the future people, and they're like, "Well, that's weird, because I'm trying. Let me think about how it goes. All the people that are training us are young."
Yeah.
And we like this, the whole theory is that they're only picking people who will be dead in the future anyway.
Yeah.
And they're being trained by people that don't exist yet, so as not to create this rift in time. And like, I found that really compelling, and it's kind of just a little line that isn't even really confirmed. It's just a line that's said. So yeah, and there were some other things I didn't really care for, like the forced backstory or future story of Chris Pratt's character felt very out of place. How'd you feel about the Tomorrow War overall?
Yeah, it's a dumb action sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Don't read much more into it than that. I do really appreciate though that this is a totally original IP.
That's
and
true.
You don't see that very often these days. And an original IP that Amazon or whoever paid like $200 million to produce.
From what I understand, it was supposed to have a theatrical release, but
right, yes. They shot it in 2019, so it was supposed to come out last year, and then something happened. I don't know, a funny thing happened.
Nice.
And then, and I don't know. Amazon bought it and skipped the theaters, but I think it would have been fun to see in a theater.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I mean, Chris Pratt's character is just kind of this stock kind of hero guy. And the podcast that I listened to that talked about this made a good point. Like, why does he have to be an ex-military guy? Like, I find it more compelling if he's just some nobody Joe Schmo who is forced to go into the future and fight this war, because his military experience doesn't really have anything to do with the future.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. And, Ugh.
So, the thing that I found hilarious, and this is minor spoiler, but there's a plot point in the third act that the fate of the world rests on these heroes going to and getting advice from a high school student.
Oh my God, I hated that so much.
About volcanoes.
Fuck. Oh my God.
It was so stupid.
It was so dumb. Like, cause, and they do the thing where they have to seed that in an earlier scene.
Yes.
Where,
and it's very obvious that it's going to get a call back. It's
so obvious because there's nothing else to Chris Pratt's life in the present day.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit with his family, but I mean oh God.
And there's some kind of tossed off thing about how he has some ambition to do something great with his life, but nothing beyond that.
Yep. Again, very stock character. Did the kind of poster art or cover art of it give you vibes of like it kind of felt like this is Chris Pratt in his recent Tom Cruise sci-fi action movie phase.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah, comparing it to like Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, and like Oblivion, I think. Mm-hmm. Like it's just the poster design, but like I've looked at it like a thumbnail of it, and I was like, that kind of looks like Tom Cruise and like Edge of Tomorrow, and yeah. So I don't know. That should tell you exactly what you can go into in that it is just a kind of derivative, dumb sci-fi action movie.
Yeah. Did you hear that there is already working on a sequel?
Yeah, I did hear about that, which fine, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah. But at least we had this one original IP.
Yeah, now there's going to be a Tomorrow Tomorrow Cinematic Universe.
Right. Oh yeah. Yep. Ugh. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted all of the topics and everything. Anything else, or should we wrap it up?
No, I think that should cover it.
All right.
Until next time.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Well, that'll do it for this episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, check out Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for a ton of other content, separated by different tier levels and everything. I'm going to go ahead and play us out. And I don't know what's going to come up next. I'm going to work on getting a special episode together. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But if I don't, check out Indie Shorts International Film Festival, which is going to be here in Indy and online from July 20th to July 25th. So, having said all that, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. Nice.
Yeah, it's been a while for me. Good flick.
The first movie I saw with pizza in my home was What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, okay.
Wait, was it? Yes. Although I don't know, because what time did I watch this? But said I love the concept of this movie, but I wasn't really in love with it. Why did I say that? Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so my review on Letterboxd is, I love the concept for this movie, but I wasn't really in love with it. The scenes between the vampires and the werewolves were the standout for me. There's nothing wrong with the movie. I just think my overall disinterest in vampire fiction kept me from really connecting with this movie. This is the first movie I watched with my new cat Pizza Roll, though. So there's that. And the next day I went to the theater for the first time after becoming a cat owner and changing my entire personality to fit that identity. So the funny story with that is that I saw Krampus in the theater, and that same day, like that Christmas, I got Tiny a Kylo Ren doll, I think. Yeah. And I had it in a plastic bag just sitting out and everything. And so Pizza was like a 12-week-old kitten, and I had never had a cat before, so I don't know how they work. So I went to the movie theater to see Krampus. It's my first night away from the cat. And literally the entire time I was in the movie theater, I was worried that she was going to eat the plastic bag and choke to death, and I was going to come home to a dead cat.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that didn't happen. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
I still have that Kylo Ren.
Nice. I still have the cat.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer, and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer and at obsessivetiny, and follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Feckus, and at burger_lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!